I'm Adam Blattenberg from Diesel World.
Hi, this is Dan, owner of Dan's Diesel Performance.
I'm Christian Roth of BD Diesel.
I'm Braden Fleece, and you're listening to the Diesel Podcast.
What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. I want to encourage you, if you're not subscribed to us on YouTube, make sure and search the Diesel Podcast, head on over, hit subscribe, and the notification button. We've got a ton of videos that are going to be accompanying all these episodes. So some of our guests are going to have parts with them, their trucks being, they're going to be showing what they're talking about on the episode. So if you're looking for more information or just like to watch video and want to see what these trucks are, parts, or just different things from any of our guests, make sure and subscribe and you'll be notified right away. Today's episode comes from a listener of ours. He messaged us on Instagram and shared his build, and it was so clean there was no way that we could not do an episode with him. And so we're going to be talking with Mark, and he has a Ford OBS that has been in his family since new, and he's gone on quite the journey in building this truck. He did restoration with, completely, doing the frame, body work. He's gone through a couple different engines. So he started with a 12 valve. Now he's got a 5.9 common rail. And he's going to walk us through what his goals were with the truck and some of the challenges and also tips for anyone out there who's looking to do a restoration, do a Fummins swap, companies and people that have helped him and how he's able to get it done and what his plans are for the future with it. All right, let's get to the podcast with Mark and chatting about his Ford OBS Fummins. Mark, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I want to say thank you for messaging us and sharing your build with us when you did. You got a really clean OBS Fummins, and I always love talking about those trucks and the stories behind them. So we appreciate you taking time out of your day and going to chat with us about your truck and how you built it.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. I feel honored to be a part of that.
I know one of the first things when I was checking out your Instagram page was just how clean that truck is, and I know there's a story behind it, and I wanted to ask you for our listeners out there, they're just tuning in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your passion for diesel, and specifically like this truck, where it came from, the story behind it.
Okay, so this truck, it was purchased brand new by my father. He had to replace his older truck, his 1978 plow truck. So he bought this one brand new in 1996. It was 5.8 with an auto. It's a regular cab, single cab truck, four-wheel drive. He just needed something newer, I guess, at the time, and he bought this. He put a plow on it. It's been a plow truck since day one. Up until 2011, we had a blizzard, and I guess the toll of it just kind of took it on the truck. The twin traction beam that they put under that in the factory days just couldn't handle the snow no more. Broke that. He was up in the air about selling it. I guess I kind of, I couldn't let the truck go. I saw too much potential in it, and so we found a Dana 60 for it. I kind of made it a project then at that point. We lifted it 4 inches, put 35s on it, put some 16 by 11s on it, did like an old school kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like that's how I wanted it. That's how I kind of always saw the truck. I always wanted it lifted. Just a young me wanted a lifted truck at the time. So that's what we did. We lifted it. It was still a gasser. And then kind of just the tinkering with me, I always wanted a diesel. It was just kind of coming up in that time where like all my other friends were getting into diesels and I had this gasser, but I didn't want to let the truck go. It was too sentimental to me, too much history with it. So I got a donor truck for my place of work, bought that in intentions of actually swapping it to a 7.3, and then getting into the mods. Injectors were expensive. Did not want to go through the injector part where 12 valve, you got $500 for a decent set of, performance injectors. So ditched that. Had some tinkering with my buddy on 12 valves before. He bought one. So I kind of like that idea. That's where the idea for a 12-valve swap came in. So we swapped that in. Had an auto at the time. It was a 5R110. Couldn't really get it to do what I wanted. I wanted like a daily driver kind of type feel, and it just wasn't putting out what I wanted. So we kind of ditched that in that winter time of that year, and we put a NV4500 in it, and that just kind of sold me on it. It was a perfect setup for a really long time. It was fun.
And with the diesel side of it, when you were you're thinking about the 7.3 and then the 12 valve and just trying to gather all the information for it? Were there mostly friends that, were really into the trucks that knew, hey, this is what you should do with the fueling and the air, and this is kind of the power range you can get to? Or where did you find the information and the resources to be able to tackle this kind of swap?
At that time, there wasn't really like Facebook forums, because it was like 2011, 2012. There really wasn't forums, so you were like on competition diesel, and you're on diesel bombers and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of hard at that time to like find that stuff. You really had to kind of go through like Diesel World or Diesel Power to go through magazines and get ideas and see it through the magazines and that kind of aspect, and get your ideas on what horsepower you want, or what you could really do with it. So that's where that kind of came from, and friends were obviously peer pressure to that too, with horsepower and stuff like that. So, and once you caught the bug, you never let it go.
Oh yeah, once you start, I think once you just drive one, you're hooked.
Yeah.
But then definitely once you add power to it, different upgrades, it's
Once you get into a turbo diesel, it's game over. You're not letting it go.
With the setup with 12 valve, the NV4500, did you keep that setup in it, or did you change that up throughout the years?
I had that set up probably about 5 years. It went from a little mildish 12 valve to a full blown built 12 valve with a dual disc from Valair. That was fun. It was a fun setup, but it became too much of a hassle. I became older and a little wiser at the time, and still wanted fun, but I wanted it at the turnkey, where I didn't have to wait for the smoke to die down, the right temperature. It was starting to get into the dying age, I guess you'd say, of a 12 valve, but it was starting to become a little bit hassle for me to want that setup. So I had that for about 5 years, and then switched over into a common rail, and that was it was perfect. It's been really fun with that setup. Just simple, a little bit of electronics. It did scare me at first, but once I kind of broke it down and got some help from people online, it wasn't that bad, honestly. That was probably the breakthrough point. Once I got through that and it started from the wiring aspect, that was, it was over from there. Like, it was fun. Like, you could tune it, single turbo, about 550 horsepower, and full manual valve body trans with a 48 RE, and it was just a fun setup with that.
I think a lot of truck owners, when they're thinking about doing a build like this, they come to that same crossroads of, do I do a 12 valve and have the simplicity of how mechanical it is versus the common rail, and just how easy it is to add power, do a tow tune, custom tuning on them to light any sort of turbo setup that you may want or have. And so if somebody's thinking about that, how would you break it down for them with whether to do a 12 valve or to do a 5.9 common rail swap?
I guess it's all like, when I tell people, I'll be like, well, what do you want out of it? What is your goal with the truck? Obviously, there's a budget. You can go from $5,000 to $8,000 to just insane amount of money you can put into a truck, but you got to have that goal set, and you got to know what you want to do with the truck. So that'll all determine if you want a 12 valve, or if you want a common rail. They can do a lot and they can do it all, but there's obviously going to be a fine line on what you really want from that vehicle to do.
How's the manual valve body with, say, daily driving and, just, I don't know if you tow with the truck, or I saw some pictures where you're hauling some firewood, so I know you use the truck.
Oh yeah, I definitely, and it's cool that I can find people online. I found Logan Yelton online. He's owner of Logan Built, and he built the trans. And I said to him, I want this truck, or I want the trans, I want it to do everything. And he's like, all right, we're going to do this. And I asked him about full manual valve body, and he's like, yeah, it's no problem. And, I do a little bit of towing, but I like to use it. I like to use the truck with a lot of things, whether it's daily drive it, show it, or tow, haul, whatever, and I do put it through some abuse, and it's definitely fun, and for me, I think it's worth it. There's a little bit of, controllability with it, but if you can kind of put up with a little bit of traffic and stuff like that, it's not as bad as a manual, but it's definitely more fun, and it gives it that kind of wow factor too, I think.
I remember early on, like when I first had a diesel truck, one of my friends had it was a Cummins and it had an NV5600 in it, and I drove it somewhere for him. And after about 5 minutes, I'm like, these are cool, but I don't want to shift all the time. I don't want to push in the clutch and all that sort of stuff.
The traffic with the cars, like they like to keep their own speed, but they don't understand, like when you're fighting third and fourth or fourth and fifth, it's not fun doing that back and forth. It's fun for a little bit, but not all the time. It gets aggravating for sure.
Now, in the actual, the process of swapping in the common rail and doing a lot of the work that you've done to the truck, how did you do that? Did you get a lot of help from friends? How much of it did you do yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not me. There's a lot of help. There's a lot of help from friends and people that came into the process. When you're talking about you're building a truck like this, and it definitely attracts the people, and it's attracted my main friends that I have right now, and they've helped so much with this, whether it's them, my parents, especially my father, or, my fiance, Joanna. She's definitely supportive with all that stuff. You got to have a key group of people to be doing this, because, if it's just you, it's really hard. It's mentally hard too.
Yeah, I think especially with the timeline, involved is, if you were to look at doing, say, that the common rail swap and the transmission and everything, how much time was involved to just do all that, just to physically get it in there, get it to run, be able to drive?
I guess it could take shorter or longer on how much you do to it. You could tear the whole block down, to a bare block and put everything in it all brand new, reseal it. It could take you anywhere from 3 to 4 or 5 months, or I've seen builds that are year to 2 years, because they just, once you pull the motor out, it's like, well, I might as well take the cab off. Well, I might as well, do the suspension. It turns into a big can of worms. But, if you're going that far, you might as well do a lot of the other stuff while you're there. Then it becomes like, well, I want to show it now. Now it becomes a real project.
Now, when you were doing that, did you invest a lot of time into, like sanding, painting the frame, and redoing the interior and all those sorts of things? Yeah.
Once the first time I did it, I had the motor out, and then my buddy Dan's like, well, we might as well take the cab off. I'm like, what do you mean? Like the bed's already off, the motor's out. It's just a rolling chassis with a cab on it. So I'm like, all right, whatever. We flip the cab back and we start sanding the frame on it. So then it just became like frame off restoration at that point, and did that by myself and some friends helping out, and then it became paint and body after that. And then it just turned into a clean build, and not wanting to make it dirty or anything like that, but I still wanted to do everything with it.
I imagine also being in the Midwest, it's really tough to keep trucks, clean, maybe not necessarily for a year, but like, through several winters and the salt that's on the road and all that. Are there any tips or tricks or things that you've done to be able to keep it as clean as it is?
You're going to need another vehicle for sure, because you cannot, if you're putting all this time, money, and effort, it's going to go to waste within like 2 years. It just takes a toll. The amount of salt, and it depends on how harsh the winters are. They really put it down up here. And I store the truck, honestly. I got to park it, because I've seen it happen once already, and then I had to reduce some of the stuff, and it's not worth it in my aspect. You got to have another vehicle.
Yeah, it seems really tough. I check out a lot of posts and just different truck things I see on, Instagram or Facebook, and it's something, here in Colorado's not too bad. I know the farther west you get, it's even less of an issue with like rust, and, a lot of areas don't snow, so we kind of have it lucky out here. Yeah. But to see just that challenge of it, it's another aspect to a truck build, is once you get it set up the way you want, you do the paint and the body work and, get everything perfect. It's like, okay, now how do I keep it looking perfect? Which I imagine is a major challenge. Yeah,
oh no, it definitely is. And you see some of the trucks like, in Texas and Arizona, Washington, and they're, 300,000, 400,000 miles, and they look brand new. But here, you got a truck that could have 20,000 miles, and it looks like it drove through like salt its whole life, and it's 25 years old, and there's no fenders left on it.
Now, with this particular truck, are you finished with it, or are you tossing around some ideas of maybe some power upgrades or changing, wheels and tires or just anything on it?
Well, I mean, it's never done. It's with a project. It's a never-ending project, but it's also a money pit. But I could be doing worse things with my time. But I'd love to always be working on the truck. I'd like to maybe put a CP3 into it and maybe some injectors. Just get a little bit more power out of it because I'm definitely running out of fuel on the stock fueling with it right now. Maybe do something like that. I want to put a locker in it. I want to put a 4-link probably up front because it's got 2005 axles under it, running gear. So it's a big difference with that on the truck, and it definitely rides a lot better from the stock suspension, where it rides like a brick, as they say.
The engine right now is about 550 horse.
Yeah, I'd say it's around there. It had a single turbo on it. It was probably about 550. It ran a 12.7 in the quarter, which I think for that setup and the wheel setup and everything, just and myself, that's pretty good setup right there for a little fun daily driver.
Yeah, that's moving for a truck that you can use and haul things with, and the power part is always interesting as well as they. Even just stock, they have good torque and they drive really well. But then you start to get into some upgrades, especially on a common rail, it's a tuner or some custom tuning or something like that. And then you have 450, 500, and you're cool with it for about 6 months, and then you get a little bored. And that's adding a little more.
Yeah, exactly. You get used to the power. You're like, oh, this thing's slow now, and then you're like, well, what else I can do? You slap another turbo on there like I did. I put S475 on there, and it's fun, compounds are fun. They're definitely fun, but I know there's definitely other tasteful mods I could be doing to get way more power out of it.
Now, is there a cap on power that you've had? Like you said, hey, I don't want to make more than this because it might turn into something that's maybe not as fun to drive, or it's just too much for the street.
I guess, everyone wants 1,000, like, why not, but at that point, you really you're testing the limits of the truck, and I think I'm happy where I'm at right now with it, just because it's fun. I can do a lot with it. There's, I'm not breaking anything yet, I would say, so I'm definitely happy with it right now, but, who knows? It could go farther, for sure.
I did see on your Instagram that you have a Chevelle that you're working on, and when I saw the picture, I was wondering if you were going to think about doing like a Duramax swap into that, or maybe a Cummins or something.
That it's my father's car from high school, so he's been putting that project off for about 20 plus years, and he finally wanted to get into that project. So we've been diving in that thing. The first thing I said, hey, let's do a Duramax. He's like, no. So he's keeping it kind of old school, but modernizing it. So it's definitely cool to see that project come to life as well.
Well, it's really cool to see, how much fun you've had with the build. And I know in chatting with you, today and even before, is you've really enjoyed it. And that comes across, in the pictures and in the things that you talk about. And, for someone out there, sometimes they get into projects where they, they're going on a little bit longer than they wanted, and they kind of, feel a little down about it or a little discouraged. What sort of tips would you give to someone out there that's listening and is like, hey, I want to tackle this build, but I haven't been able to progress it as fast as I want, or I'm just not sure if I can do it? What advice would you give them?
Sometimes you gotta take a break. I know some breaks are longer than other people. I definitely, I had to step away a couple of times from mine. I'm just like, I'm way over in my head. There's sometimes I want to sell it, et cetera, et cetera. But, you just got to have a good group of people with you pushing it, saying, hey, you're going to finish it. Some take longer than others, but, going on groups on Facebook, there's one I go on, Fummins Tech or OBS Addicts on there, and you get kind of guys out there that'll post their trucks, and you're like, all right, I got some more motivation, or they're working on theirs, and you see other people finishing their builds on forums and stuff, and it definitely kind of motivates you, and once you get back out there wrenching and finishing it, because you want to be in the driver's seat. You don't want to be in the passenger seat of somebody else's build. You want to be in the driver's seat of your build, driving it in the summer.
To have, as far as shows, and I know like the last year, a lot of them have been, either canceled or, there haven't been any. But in the years past, did you ever take it to shows or, I know there's a lot of diesel events that are in your area, throughout the year. And the reason I thought of that was just, I think going to shows and seeing other people's builds are also another way to get motivation and seeing what they're working on and chatting with people and, building relationships, meeting new people.
Yeah, exactly. I've met so many people, especially through Instagram, and then putting names, to faces and stuff like that. Going to shows, I've been, my first one was SDX 2012. That was an eye opener, I would say, for my first truck show was going to SDX. It was very fun, very wild. And then we went to TS. That was probably my favorite show was TS. Just going down there, different event. You have drag racing one day, and then you go truck pulls at night. You meet people. That's how I met Logan, my trans builder, through Instagram, and we just become really good friends. You meet other people through there. You meet people off Facebook and stuff like that, and you get to see their builds, and then you get to see them in person, and that's how you meet a lot of people and you get connections. And so I think that's a great way to do that.
Shy Diesel in 2012 was my first diesel show too. And
oh boy!
And I'd been into diesels for a while before then, probably 5 or 6 years, and most of the knowledge that I had was like Cummins forum and magazines and just working around it. But then I went there, and I knew something was different when I drove from the airport to Terre Haute, and I saw how many diesel trucks were just everywhere. I knew I was in for something different.
Yeah, everyone's there for a little bit for like the Poland and obviously the awesome truck show that's the show and shine that's there. It's awesome under that canopy and just hanging out, chilling, talking with people. But I mean, obviously that it's kind of like a party event, I would say. Everyone just wants to relax and have fun on the weekend.
Oh yeah, and just the amount of, there's so many people. Like the stands were filled and the vendor row was filled, and it was really cool to see how many people from all over, really North America, go to it.
Yeah,
and
it was a focal point, I guess, and everyone wanted to be at that show, and that's where you see the big names, and you get to meet the big names and talk with them in person. So that was cool to see that.
Now, if you think, in the future, do you plan on any other truck builds? Is there something else you're thinking, hey, I'd really like to pick up, like an old square body or, an old Power Wagon or another Ford or something and do a different build?
I'd definitely love to if the funds would allow me. I mean, obviously this one definitely pulls my funds the most. Having two would definitely be hard. I'd love to, though. I'd love to have a single cab long bed F350, just a clean Power Stroke auto, just something simple, just another cruiser, I guess, but Power Stroke form, I would say.
I see a lot of them on Instagram. It's amazing to me, like when you look at an old Cummins, like a second gen or even a first gen, they have so many miles on them. But there's these OBSs like 94, 97s where you can find them where they're clean, they have low mileage, and it's like, man, it's almost like traveling in a time machine, back to the mid 90s and picking one up.
And people love that, and you can just tell that they love it because some of them they've just never driven them. They got low miles. And they're asking a lot of money, I think, what people are thinking. But
yeah,
for what they are and the prices that they're asking, you can't get it again. They're not making them again. And, nobody wants a newer truck maybe because of some reasons. And they want that old school feel, and they want the reliability, and they just want something cool and classic. So you're going to pay for it. And the OBS trucks are definitely in the market. They're right there right now.
That's been a big trend for quite a while now, is people wanting to get older trucks. Even by older, I mean, I don't think they're that old, but like 5.9 common rails or an LB7 Duramax or 7.3 or 6-liter Power Stroke. But it's like they want the simplicity of them and the ease of working on them. And I know some are harder to work on than others, but compared to the new ones, they're totally different, and
yes,
they're a lot more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the simplicity, like you were saying, like when you get into OBS truck, like there's no massaging seats, there's no heated steering wheel, there's no big 10-inch screen TV, right there in front of you. It's just, it's you driving the truck, and it's just simplicity. And I think that's what a lot of people are going for right now, and that's what they want to feel.
The guys who really kind of turned me on to how much of a market there is for OBS stuff is CP Addict. We've had them on the podcast a couple times, and
Yeah,
those guys,
Chris, they're awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just talking about how they got hooked on it, and then I've been following them for a while, and just seeing all that they do and where they find their trucks, I don't know, but they find some really cool ones that are out there.
Oh yeah, they definitely have people, and they have secrets. I think they don't tell, and they got guys on call where they got probably nice trucks, and some appear out of nowhere, and you're like, where do these come from? They're barn finds, or someone they just let them sit, or they just hauled their camper, and they're just immaculate trucks. But they definitely are in the right market. Paul, Chris, and especially Seth, those guys over at Complete Performance, they are in it, and I'm glad they're in it, because a lot of these people, they're trying to restore these trucks, and it's getting harder and harder to find parts nowadays.
Yeah, that's a major part of it. And I think where a company like CP Addict, it helps so much to be able to fix these things that just with time, they're going to wear out, whether it's hinges or locks or just different things you're going to find on any truck, and having that source for it.
Yeah, just little things, especially, plastic, wears out, or even door panels. There's a company, OBS Solutions, out there, Devin and Kenny. They're making things that people won't even think of. You got door panel repair kits, when you close the door and it's all wobbly between the door, and they make a repair kit for that, and the window switch. Those break, those little tabs, they break in there. People don't think, your window switch is flapping all about, and they got little repair kits for that, and they're thinking about these little things because they want these trucks to last. People want to have a 30-year-old truck still on the road, and nobody's making parts, but there's companies out there that's still doing it.
One of the toughest parts is, like, your truck is so clean, and we're doing a podcast, so we're not showing it. And people need to check out your trucks. I wanted to ask, for people who are listening, they're an OBS enthusiast, maybe trying to get some ideas for their truck build. Where can people see your truck?
You can see my truck. It's on Instagram. It's 24 the OBS Fummins. You can find all the pictures. You can DM me. I got people always DMing me questions. Don't be afraid to hold back on the questions. I'll always answer people, because I like to help out with people. There's always people helping me, so I kind of pay it forward and give help to others when they need it.
Well, I appreciated when you messaged into us, shared your build, and I was looking through the pictures. I'm like, man, I got to get Mark on the podcast. I know we have some OBS guys that listen, and they're always saying, hey, get more OBS stuff on, and your truck was really cool, and learning about the process and how you approached it, and just it's a really sweet truck. Not just how it looks, but I think the power level you have it at, the upgrades you've done to it, going all the way from the frame through the bodywork, the paint, everything else. It's really clean. I encourage everyone to go check out Mark's truck, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share the build with us. Give us some tips for anyone out there that's thinking of tackling a restoration / engine swap. And it's really cool to learn more about it.
Thank you so much for having me on there.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to YouTube and search the Diesel Podcast and subscribe if you haven't. There's actually surprisingly a large number of people who watch our videos there that aren't subscribed. So if you're looking to have content delivered right to your phone, be notified right when we release an episode, that's the best way. And we've got a bunch of new videos and ways for you guys to interact with the podcast on there. And also, we love reading your guys' comments. There's a ton of great discussions, especially with some of the recent episodes we've done about the EPA and questions that you guys have, and compliance parts and the future of diesel. And we check all of them. We reply to your comments on there, and we get a ton of show ideas from you guys. So we encourage you to do that. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.